Okay, so we just finished that last video shading in this part of our graph because this is where the purple and red arrows were both pointing to. So now let's check number 8 and see how you did on number 8. So our first inequality, y is not by itself. So we are going to have to subtract our 2x here to get the y by itself. So when I subtract 2x from both sides, notice it cancels on the left, but remember, I can't subtract the 2x from the 6, so I just write 6 minus 2x. Okay, and then my next step, I need to get rid of that 3 in front of the y, so I'm just going to divide everything by 3. So we get y is less than 6 divided by 3 would be a 2. Minus 2 divided by 3. 3 doesn't go in there evenly, and we can't make that a decimal, so we just leave it 2 over 3x. So now I can see my slope, which is the number attached to the x, is going to be this negative 2/3. And then my y-intercept, my b value, is the number without the x, which is just the 2. So going to graph this, I begin at 2. So I begin on the y-axis at 2. Then I move with my slope. So since it's negative 2/3, I'm going to go down 2 and to the right 3. Then my line, I'm going to look at my less than sign, and my less than sign tells me I'm going to have a dashed line. So I'm going to draw my line. And then I would shade below this line, right? Because it's y is less than, so you should have shaded below the line. Then my next inequality. I need to get the y by itself, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So on the left, I have y, my inequality sign, greater than or equal to. I cannot add a 1 to a negative 2x. One has an x and one doesn't. So I'm just going to leave this, negative 2x plus 1. So my m is going to be a negative 2. But remember, slope needs to be a fraction, so we put it over 1. Then my b is a 1. So you should have began at 1 on the y-axis, so begin at 1, and move 2 over 1, but that 2 is negative, so down 2 and to the right 1. Down 2 and to the right 1. Looking at my inequality sign, right here, since it is equal to, I'm going to have that solid line. So I have this solid line going through here. And then my shading, since it's y is greater than or equal to, I would be shading above this line. And once again, I can see the purple and red arrows are all pointing to this little section of graph right here. So this is where you should have shaded. Okay, how'd you guys do? Good, hopefully. Next, we're going to do the opposite. This time they've given us the graphs and we need to come up with the inequalities. So you can see there's going to be 4 parts to the graph. 1 will be completely unshaded, 2 will be shaded once, and the double shade is going to be the darkest. So this is where our solutions lie. So on number 9, I notice I have a horizontal and a vertical line. So that tells me that I'm just going to have a y on my horizontal line and just an x on my vertical. So let's deal with this horizontal line first. So y, and then it is this line, the shade is below, and it's dashed, so that would be just a less than. And then we just need to figure out where it crosses that y-axis at 3. So that's how we got this 3. So y, because it's horizontal, less than, because we're shading below and it's dashed. And then 3, because that's where we're crossing the y-axis. Then our vertical line, we know it's going to be x, and where it crosses the x-axis here is at a 2. And then we need to figure out the shade. So looking up here, I can see I'm shading to the left, not to the right. So shading to the left, are these numbers less or greater? They're less. And then are we going to be equal to if we have a dashed line? No, we're just going to be less than. So our two inequalities would be y is less than 3 and y is greater than 2. Okay, on number 10, we have two horizontal lines. So we're just going to pick one to start with, and we know it's going to be a y. And then this is where the overlap in shading is. So is that above or below the line? And then you have to find your y-intercept. Okay, so our y-intercept is right here at a 3. And then we're shading, this double shaded area is below, so that would be less than. And then do we need to add our equal to sign? It's kind of hard to see, but this is a dashed line. So it's just y is less than 3. Now we're going to do this second line. So again, it's horizontal, so we know y. It crosses the y-axis right here at 1. And then we're shading above. So is that less than or greater than? Greater than. And then solid or dashed line. It's dashed, so are we equal to? No. So y is less than 3 and y is greater than 1. 11 and 12, we have lines that are not horizontal and vertical. So let's just look at this solid line right here on 11. So we know we're going to start with y. Looking at where this double shaded area is that above or below the line? It's above. So above means greater than. And then it's going to be a solid line, so that's going to tell us we're going to be or equal to. Now, to find slope, we have to go all the way back to Unit 3. Finding slope, this is our rise over our run. So you just pick 2 points, and you count how many you go up and to the right. So we went up 1 and to the right 1, so that's just a 1. So 1x. Then we look for our y-intercept, which would be right here at a 1, so plus 1. And again, we've already talked about what this inequality sign should be. We are shading above the line, so greater than, and it's solid, so equal to. So y is greater than or equal to x plus 1. Then this dashed line, where again, we start off with y. Now let's find our slope, so pick any 2 points, it doesn't matter which 2. This time we're going down 1 and to the right 1. So that would be down 1, which is negative 1, to the right 1, which is 1. Negative 1 over 1 is just a negative 1. And that's what attaches with our x, so negative x, because we don't need to write that 1 there. Then our y-intercept happens to be the same as our other graph. So it's still at positive 1, so plus 1. It's a dashed line, so we know it's not going to be equal to. Look at where the darkest shade is. That's below the line, so below means less than. Okay, then number 12, I want you to try on your own. Pause the video and see how you do. Okay, so on this line right here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have my y. Then I'm going to find my slope, so I'm going to pick 2 points. So I'm going to have to go down 1, 2, and to the right 1, 2. So down 2, to the right 2. So negative 2 divided by 2 is just a negative 1. So that gives me my negative x. My y-intercept would be here at negative 2. So that would be minus 2. I have a dashed line, so that tells me it's not going to be equal to. And the darkest shade is above, so that would be greater than. My second line, I know I'm going to start off with y. Then I'm going to pick any 2 points, so here and here. Find my slope, so I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 1. So down 1 to the right 1, which tells me my slope is going to be a negative x. My y-intercept is at positive 1, so plus 1. Dashed line, so it's not equal to. The darkest shade is below, so less than. So these would be my 2 inequalities. Okay, so you have a big ideas assignment to work on for Mrs. Homer's class, so you can go ahead and log in and do that.